Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm the OPJellicent, and I'm going to be talking about my draft for season number 8 of the WPL, or the Western Pokemon League, right here, right now. So really quickly, before we dive right into the picks, just a few things that I did want to quickly address. I've actually commissioned this league since its third ever season. I've played in it since season 1, but I never got around to commissioning it since the third season, and I'm pretty sure those old videos are still on my channel in case you guys do want to check those out. But yeah, I actually managed to win it twice in seasons number 3 and 4, which was very cool. Unfortunately, since then, I've actually been knocked out around 1 of the playoffs every time, which is not very good, but I'm not too stressed out about that. Last season, which was season number 7, which ended a couple months ago, my goal was simply to one-up my record from season 6, which I managed to do pretty nicely. In season number 6, I went 8-4 in the regular season, and in season number 7, I went 9-3, which was very cool. And this time around, my only goal is actually to make the playoffs. I'm not trying to one-up my other record or anything. I just want to make it in. I'm not going to stress out too much over the regular season record or my performance in the playoffs itself. I just want to make it into the playoffs. So, with that being said, I actually drafted a ton of stuff that I am familiar with to help myself actually achieve that goal. If you saw my IBL draft analysis or any of my games over there, you may have actually seen that I drafted a ton of stuff that I'm not very familiar with, but I did not do that over here, and somehow a ton of stuff that I did not expect to fall to 12th overall, which was my draft position, actually ended up falling all the way down here. Mega Latias was still around when it was my turn to pick, as was Kyurem-Black, so let's go ahead and reveal my first overall pick right now. So for my first overall pick right here, I scooped up Kyurem-Black, which you may find interesting considering I just mentioned Mega Latias, which is most certainly a superior dragon, was still actually on the draft board. The main reason is the reliability Kyurem-Black provides me. I've used it, I want to say, I think 18 times now, and I've gotten over 200 kills with it in that time. So it has so many unpredictable sets, being able to utilize all 3 of the choice items, Choice Scarf, Choice Band, and Choice Specs. It can also run sub-lefties or sub-hone claws with 2 attacks, which is very cool. Its coverage is just insane, getting access to dragon-type attacks, steel, Reich, psychic, ground, and ice, and ghost-type attacks on either the physical or special side, and in some cases even both, which is very valuable. And because of that, I did make it my Z Captain, meaning it can use any Z move that it wants that does not rainbow boost or stats. So Z Hail right here is definitely a thing if I want to run that to speed myself up, and also use accurate blizzards, which could be very viable too if the matchup does allow for that. And nothing much else to mention about this thing. You probably already know how much I love using it if you have followed the channel for a while, so let's go ahead and get right into round number 2. Okay, moving right along here, we have another Pokemon that I've actually used before in Mega Diancie. I've actually had Kyurem-Black and Mega Diancie together before. I believe it was in season number 2 of the IBA, and offensively they just help out each other a lot. Magic Mounts being able to deter hazards from going up really supports Kyurem-Black, along with the fact that Kyurem-Black's access to dual screens, which yes, I actually have ran that before in an 11-mon tournament, allows Mega Diancie to set up easier with Rock Polish and Calm Mind, any sort of setup that you may need. The speed tiers between the two are great as well, since Kyurem-Black forces everything between 96 and 109 to run speed boosting natures if they want to outrun it, while Mega Diancie covers stuff that is above 110, so I really like the speed tiers between the two. I guess the one drawback between the two is that they offensively don't really deal with bulky steel types such as Mega Scissor or Registeel naturally, so that's something we definitely have to cover with the rest of our draft, but that shouldn't be too hard to patch up right here, so let's go ahead and move on to round number 3. So coming up next, I ended up just rounding out my tier 1 picks with Tornadus-T. U-turn momentum into my great breakers like a Kyurem-Black and Mega Diancie is very valuable. I actually had Torn-T and Mega Diancie alongside each other last season, and Torn-T's ability to help you safely pivot into your frailer breakers, such as Mega Diancie for example, went a long way last season. I also did make it one of my 3 Z move users, as it does get access to both Heat Wave and Focus Blast, which can help me offensively deal with those bulky steel types, which I did mention the other 2 Pokemon I have drafted so far do struggle with. Besides that, I believe it gets access to Dark Pulse, which I ran last season alongside Dark Z to help deal with a Mew. It does also get access to Psychic, so that could be a thing. Shattered Psyche could be a pretty big threat, alongside obviously Hurricane and Air Slash for its best stab attacks. Past all that, I do love the utility it gets in Knockoff, Defog, and Taunt, so that's going to help our breakers out a ton too, and if I really want to, I can even run like a Tech Tailwind and then U-turn out into one of my other 2 abusers and just U-turn and get 2 turns of breaking with those other 2 Pokemon and outspeed everything, so that could be very cool too. And yeah, that could be exciting, but let's go ahead and move on to my 4th round Pokemon here. So diving right into tier 2 here, I drafted my final final Z-move user in Azelf, which covers the speed tier in between Mega Diancie and Tornadus-T. I have used Azelf before. I actually believe I had it alongside Torn in season number 5 of the WPL, and it gives me a second stealth rocker, so Mega Diancie is not completely pressured into that role. The Z on this thing is really nice too, with Psychic Stab, Fire Blast, and Shadow Ball. I think it also gets Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball, and Signal Beam too. Maybe even Thunderbolt. I'll have to double check on all that, but yeah, it's definitely not predictable at all, so that's really valuable. It's also another U-turner alongside Torn, so there's definitely a momentum factor building with my team right here, which is always great. Focus Sash sets are definitely an option too, just being able to go ahead and force rocks. It gets access to Taunt too, as well as dual screens, which makes the Focus Sash set that much better. It's sort of just an offensive variant of Torn if you really think about it, getting similar coverage, knock, U-turn, and obviously this thing lacks defog, but it gets stealth rocks instead. And yeah, I'm excited to have Azelf back on the squad right here, so let's go ahead and move right into the 5th round. So something that I always seem to ignore is drafting a Rapid Spinner, and I really wanted to make that a priority this time around. I hate having to defog my own hazards, so Rapid Spin, while it can be dealt with using Ghost-type Pokemon, can let you remove hazards while keeping your own up. Custap Berry is also a new thing that Forretress here really values a lot, in combination with its ability Sturdy, being able to go ahead and lay up hazards and then explode, or get up a last-ditch effort screen, for example. It also gives me a 3rd Stealth Rock setter and a Spike setter, so that's even more options with hazards right there. Slow Volt Switch is also something that I did take into account when picking this Pokemon. Being able to pivot in, tank hits, and then slow Volt Switch out is definitely very good in terms of getting momentum, especially alongside breakers such as Torn-T, Mega Diancie, and Kyurem-Black, of course. The Fire weakness can even work with you because you're able to go ahead and run something like Oka Berry counter, or maybe just like counter alongside Sturdy if you're at full health, so I do value that a lot too. And beyond that, all that, it is also a T-Spike setter as well as a screen setter. So I now have 4 screen setters, I believe. Kyurem-Black, Diancie, Azelf, and Forretress right here all get dual screens, so that's definitely very good. And it's probably my first actual bulky Pokemon on this draft, now that I think about it, so that's kind of funny. But let's go ahead and dive right into round number 6. So heading into the second half, I got Entei for round 6, which is yet another Pokemon I know how to use. I've actually used every single Pokemon I've drafted so far, more than once in the past, which is really good. Entei is no exception. I had it in ICBA season number 3, and WPL season number 5, and it's just such a good breaker. It's a good pivot with Assault Vest too, being able to go ahead and switch into Pokemon like Volcarona and other special attackers, which I do value a lot. And a strong Pyre type is definitely something I think every draft needs. It also gives me good priority too and extreme speed, which I actually had no priority users up to this point. Unfortunately, Kyurem-Black does not get Ice Shard, so Entei right here starts my priority game right here. The one drawback to it is that it's forced to run an Adamant Nature in most scenarios if you do want to run Sacred Fire or Extreme Speed, but honestly, if you just treat it as though it has base 86 speed rather than base 100, it will definitely do the job. I have seen other unique Entei sets work with like Weakness Policy alongside Sunny Day, and that can definitely do something as well if the matchup does allow for it. But besides that, it is very one-dimensional, it's very predictable, but it does what it does really well, and that's what it's so good about it right here. Nothing much else to say about it. Let's go ahead and move right on to round number 7. Heading into the final 5, I actually figured I wanted a Pokemon that was faster than Tornadus-T, given that I did not have an electric type yet, and this was definitely my best option right here. Since Jolteon was actually tier 4, it's kind of a perfect fit for my draft. Last season, Tornadus-T was my fastest Pokemon, and while we did do exceptionally well with a 9-3 record, I did not want to limit my speed control to Tornadus-T this season, and this pick further builds on my fast momentum alongside Torn and Azelf, because those two get U-turn and this thing gets a Volt Switch. Its coverage is not phenomenal right here with Jolteon, really just consisting of Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, and Hidden Power Fire, alongside its Thunderbolt stab, but it does get some cool other stuff, being yet another dual screen setter for the team, so we have 5 now. It also does get Baton Pass if I really want to get safe momentum against teams that have a ground type Pokemon, and it's also a Thunder Waver, which is kind of a cheesy idea, like why would you ever Thunder Wave when you can just attack, but sometimes slowing things down for another win condition can be very valuable, and yeah, I'm excited to have Jolteon on this team. It's actually the first Pokemon that I've never used before on this draft, and actually all the other Pokemon I've used over 2 times, and this is one that I've never used before, so it should be cool to try out right here, and let's go ahead and get right into my next Pokemon. 4th to last right here, I figured Diggersby could be cool as a physical breaker that has a speed tier lower than Adamant, Entei, and Kyurem-Black. I've only ever used Diggersby in a tournament, being TTM Summer Showdown for 2018, and I loved using it over there a lot. It's a great Scarfer with a amazing stab attacks. It also gets access to U-turn, knockoff, all 3 elemental punches, wild charge, and even gunk shot. So the coverage is definitely nothing to sleep on. I believe it gets access to superpower too, so really solid coverage. It also randomly gets access to spikes, which is kind of cool. I can always throw those up as my opponent maybe is forced to switch out their Pokemon, given this thing's immense power. It also further builds on the priority I began building with Extreme Speed Entei and Quick Attack Jolteon, due to this thing's access to Quick Attack as well. So that could be cool to pick off a lot of Pokemon. In most scenarios, if the opponent doesn't resist, they're probably taking over 30% from Quick Attack from this thing, so that's really solid. Last thing I did want to mention is its setup options with both Agility and Swords Dance. Usually you only need one or the other based on your opponent's team composition, so that can be very cool to go ahead and sweep teams. But let's go ahead and get right into round number 9. So at this point in the draft, I could actually only draft 1 tier 4 and 2 tier 5s, and I decided to go ahead and knock out that tier 4 mon right here in Virizion. I had Virizion for a few weeks in the GBA-D League, but unfortunately that draft as a whole was just kind of a big fail. I decided I wanted to go ahead and give Virizion another try right here, since I have seen it put in a lot of work before. It gets good access to both dual stabs on the physical and special sides, which is really nice. It has an insane special defense that I think it's like above base 120. It's probably like 129 off of my memory. I'll have to double check that, but Assault Vest sets are definitely very nice for a special wall. It's a 6th dual screen setter for the squad, which is just kind of funny at this point. Its coverage includes X Scissors and Headbutt and Hidden Powers, so nothing too solid, but it's more of a pivot if anything, so I'll be utilizing it more for that. Finally, its utility right here consists of Taunt, which is always a good option, alongside Swords Dance and Calm Mind to boost the power of its attacks, because Virizion by itself isn't actually that strong of a Pokemon, so that setup can really go a long way. And yeah, we're left with 2 tier 5 Pokemon for my last 2 picks right here. Let's go ahead and dive right into those. Second to last mon I have right here is another bulky pivot for the team in Weezing. Weezing is actually the second and last Pokemon on this draft alongside Jolteon that I've never actually used before, but I've seen others use it, and it's definitely a really solid wall with a lot of utility, and T-Spikes, Will-O-Wisp, Pain Split, and it really makes it such a good pivot into a lot of other Pokemon. The ground immunity with Levitate is also something my opponents do have to consider. Its coverage beyond Poison Stab is not even bad with Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, and Dark Pulse, so that's also something my opponents will have to look out for sure. Its other techs really include Memento and Destiny Bond, which have good niches for sure. Both those attacks can really help out a win condition on my team by either allowing them to easily set up through stat drops or by removal of an opposing wall, so I do value that a lot as well. I have used like Memento Cofagrigus into a win condition on my team in the past, and I definitely think Memento is a good tech, and Destiny Bond is very cool as well. So Weezing should be a good time, and let's go ahead and get right into my final Pokemon. Rounding out the draft for this season is good old Sticky Webs right here in Leavanny. This is actually the Sticky Webber I actually usually always draft, just due to budget alone, this being tier 5 of course. Webs plus Kyurem-Black is always a fun time, as I'm sure you all already know. It is my 7th and final dual screens user on this team, so I can really just slap screens on anything I want at this point and not really care. Other than Webs, it does get good stab on the physical side in X Scissor and Leaf Blade, and good stab on the special side in Energy Ball, Leaf Storm, and Bug Buzz, along with some good utility and knockoff, but it's mainly here for the Webs, of course. But yeah, that's going to be my draft for the season right here. Week 1 will be going live this Saturday, February 10th, Sunday, February 10th, I think it actually is. So I hope you all are looking forward to that. Be sure to let me know what you guys think of the draft down below in the comments section, and I'll see you all next time. Later.